I'll do the part. This is the part of the show Larisse dislikes the most. My intros.
Oh, I think they're great. I love when you say hockey.
Thanks. Okay, here we go. Hello, welcome to Hat Trick. I'm Jordan Dollar Coltman. I'm joined as always by my brother Braden Dollar Coltman. How you doing, Braden?
I'm doing great. Ask me why I'm doing great.
Why are you doing great?
Ask me why I'm doing great.
Why are you
Oilers
doing
won.
great? Oh, there you go. Okay. Very good. Very good. Braden and I are joined this week by one of the baddest motherpuckers around, Larisse Campbell, big Oilers fan. We brought her on this week not only because this is going to be, we're going to have a topic on the Oilers. Every once in a while, we go full home fan and we do an Oilers-centric topic, and we obviously bring in the biggest Oiler fan we know, other than ourselves, of course, not to brag. But we also wanted her here for what's going to be a good conversation about a bit more serious topic than just normal everyday hockey. And she's one of the most opinionated people I know. Welcome to the show, Larisse Campbell. How you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks for being here.
Full disclosure, we are sitting in the same room, but we are via the use of technology connecting to Braden from a great distance. Let's get right to it, Braden.
Barely.
Our first topic today, the Oilers so far. We just are riding high, as you mentioned, after a great big OT win against Toronto. I think it was the most entertaining game of the year so far, at least as far as I was concerned. Just a hockey game that I've seen. Some of the early Oiler games that we watched were, they kind of went one or the other way. This was one of those games. Both teams came to play right from the get-go. Both teams had great chances. Both teams had some pretty good scoring, some good goaltending, both goalies with huge saves at the end. And obviously Connor McDavid puts up what probably is the goal of the year. Braden, how you feeling? What do you think? The Oilers so far this season.
Did you see Daddy McDavid's dangles tonight?
Oh, so nice. So nice.
Well, it's like I scream. I am elevated out of the room when he has the puck. And all night, all I want to see is the defenseman pass me the puck in stride. And it's been so frustrating the last few days. Like the last few games, they just stall, And so to see them tonight, hyped up, playing well, it's awesome.
Larisse, you were very excited.
Very excited.
The neighbors probably are filing noise complaints after that goal.
100% they are. I could just see it. I could see magic happening. And I think there's been some long, lean Oilers years, but when you have McDavid moments like that, it's like they completely go away. They evaporate, and it's the greatest team to cheer for in the world when that happens and when he plays that way. And just seeing his smile on his face after, he knew how sick that was.
First, though, he had serious poker face to start with, though. Serious poker face off the top. You knew he kind of, it almost looked like he was a little embarrassed by it, a little cheeky. And then the minute, I think it was by the time Tyson Barrie got to I
think it was Neil, actually.
Maybe Neil
said something.
And then he could not wipe that smirk off his face.
Well, Mitch Marner's reaching his childhood buddies, just watching him put up probably one of the competitors for plays of the year.
Yeah, well, I was texting a good buddy of mine who's a Toronto Maple Leafs fan. We were both, congratulating each other on a good game because it was very fun either way. It probably could have gone either way. To be honest with you, I think Toronto deserved the point they got to get to overtime because they played an amazing game as well. And the way that Matthews' line with Marner responded
totally
2 minutes after McDavid's big goal. And, I think the only thing that changed tonight that would have been different is if that room had been full of bodies and fans, the roof would have come off. Like that would have been the game of the year. We were like 7 or 8 games in.
Know what?
Go ahead.
They were playing at home, right?
Yeah.
And there's usually quite a few Toronto Maple Leafs fans. I think that my prediction would have been that the place would have erupted in pregame. When the Toronto Maple Leafs fans saw those new jerseys. Those are hideous.
Well, we did a whole topic last week.
I know, but I thought they were lighter. I thought they were white. Now I know hockey's not all about cosmetics, but I like fashion too. And those jerseys, I'm telling you, like you can't even see them. They're so dark right now. Yeah, okay. What I'm trying to say is I got some flack last week for saying on the podcast some things that were maybe a little bit too harsh, a little bit too hate centric. And I'm trying to, invoke a positivity in the world that is not that. And so I got some flack from Mom. She was telling me that, those are artists too. Those artists made those designs. And she has a very valid point. It's very fair. But at the same time, a whole fan base has to watch their team wear what looks like Canadian Tire knockoff jerseys all night. Now, the Oilers are fun. Like, they're like, yes, they kind of look like pylons, but they're fun. They're like bright. And when McDavid's flying, it's just a blur of neon orange.
Okay, all right. We're gonna leave the jerseys for a second. We have 20 seconds on this topic. The topic was supposed to be a look at where the Oilers are in the season. Really quickly, 5 words or less. Are you optimistic, pessimistic? Are they where you thought they would be? 10 seconds. We're gonna go over clearly on topic 1, but that's okay. Just really quickly,
Larisse, what do you think?
Where are the Oilers at? How do you as a fan feel? I mean, obviously tonight was a big game. Felt great. How do you feel?
Glass is not half full, but almost half full after tonight. Tonight felt like there was some desperation and hunger and like just, I don't know, it was just an enjoyable, great hockey game on all accounts. And so I'm like almost at glass half full. But if you'd asked me this yesterday, I was feeling a little pessimistic about how things were headed.
Okay, Braden, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I felt a little bit guilty off the start, just saying that they were going to be, Stanley Cup winners. But I do believe as a fan, that is our intention. I don't think that they're where I anticipated and fully expected them to be. I think that Ken Holland is got white knuckles right now, but they're heading in the right direction.
Yeah, and I would agree. I think they are a better team than they have played to. Their potential is higher than where they are, which is a good thing. They're struggling with the fact they've got one goalie. I think that's hard on them. And right now we don't know where Ethan Bear is. We know that eventually injuries are going to start to happen. So we're going to need the depth of our team to start to be able to fill some of those roles. But we'll see. Okay, that's topic 1. We went over. And we're going to go over on topic 2. In fact, we're not even going to start the clock for topic 2 because
nobody's going to notice. Everybody's going to be.
It was funny.
Waiting.
It's funny. So here's topic 2. It's funny. We talked off air last week when we had Elliot on. We were reminiscing a little bit about back when we first started doing these. And like the very first episode we ever did, one of the topics was the Edmonton football team's name. And we obviously were all in consensus of how we felt about it at the time. That was almost 3 years ago. And it took almost 3 years for the sort of seeds of change to come to flower, and we can all be very proud as Edmontonians and fans of that organization that happened. So that, though, was the catalyst of what began this show, which is that we always wanted to make sure that we were addressing the fun side of sports, and now specifically hockey, but also the more nuanced and more difficult conversation. So that is what we're going to do today. For those who are not aware of the story we're going to talk about, there's lots of information out there. Go Google it. It's become a bit of a news story. But this is we just wanted to have a conversation about it because I think it's interesting and it does connect to hockey, not the NHL, but that's irrelevant. So let me just set it up and then we'll have a conversation. So the National Women's Hockey League, which is right now the only professional women's hockey league in North America, is playing a tournament-style season in a bubble at Lake Placid. They're playing at the Herb Brooks Arena. So rather than doing a traditional season, they just felt it was safer to do sort of a tournament-style thing. So they had a round robin. They're about to go into the playoff part of that. But this is a league that is obviously trying to grow its fan base. We know that the Canadian Women's League shut down last year due to financial issues. This was prior to COVID. And so, women's sports in general, especially North America. They're always trying to grow. They're always trying to develop a fan base and a business. I want to commend, I've noticed a lot on both Sportsnet and TSN this year. They've done a lot more coverage of it. We saw highlights tonight during the intermission of those games. So I think that there's definitely a movement, and that's probably started by some of the other social movements we've seen in the past 9 to 12 months, talking about equality and equal opportunity for minorities, but also for women and for women's sports. So that's great. But this week it was in the headlines for a slightly different reason, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So about a week ago, Barstool Sports out of the New England area, their CEO, Erica Nardini, featured an interview with a couple players from the league, trying to promote the league on her podcast. She was talking with them about the tournament. It was a very traditional style sports interview. Not long after, though, many NHLL supporters and employees and reporters that report on the league voiced their concerns with the Barstool brand, and more specifically, of course, with the fact that Erica Nardini was interviewing these people, her interest in the league. They were critical of it, and they simply were citing the fact that Barstool has a very checkered history of racist and sexist content across their platforms. They've got a lot of podcasts. They've got a lot of they've got a blog, that's the style of their thing, but they've been criticized in the past for those kind of comments. Now, Barstool has not only been criticized for that content and its reputation, but also it has a history of harassing and aggressively defending those who have expressed criticism. That is where this story comes into play. Nardini posted a video to her account with her account has over 250,000 followers, so a large audience. Of course, the video was also later reposted by Barstool president and founder David Portnow. He has about 2.2 million followers. So these videos were posted to quite a large demographic. The video included screenshots. They were not blurred. They were not censored. Screenshots of the NWHL players, employees, supporters, and reporters who had voiced their grievances with Barstool. So she basically posted a video criticizing people who had been critical of Barstool and trying to call them out for it, as well as exposing their names and information to the public, and more specifically to their followers. As you can imagine, it led to a Twitter storm. Barstool fans and this army of Twitter trolls who identify themselves as stoolies began attacking and insulting and harassing many of these players and members of the media who Nardini had publicly exposed in her video. In response to this situation becoming bigger news, Nardini and Portnow had done what they often do, which is to pour gasoline on the flames, continuing to either post content, tweets, defending themselves. Barstool, much like the MAGA crowd or the Proud Boys, or you can insert any choice of right-wing, Fox-watching, neo-toxic masculinity conservative group, they all do the same thing, which is feign grievance and act like they're being unfairly criticized for their actions. The party line is to do nothing, and in fact, to simply try to continue to use it as clickbait and promotion for their own brand. That's what they've been doing. The defense has basically been, we're just trying to promote the league. Now, obviously, there are several things we want to unpack here. So let's start with that. First, when you heard this story, what were your initial reactions, Larisse?
Oh, gosh. They were complicated reactions. I think I had to try and remove my own feelings about Barstool and the Stoolies from this specific situation, because in one vein for me, I'm of the thought that all publicity is good publicity. It doesn't hurt, and the women in this hockey league deserve our viewership and our loyalty and hopefully bigger paychecks for what they do. And so a part of me was like, yeah, it's great that they're being promoted. But then the other part of me is this sort of toxic environment that Barstool has created in terms of any criticism they receive. And it's ridiculous. They're in the public eye. They've got tons of viewerships, tons of viewers, and you're going to receive some criticism, and how you interact and respect constructive criticism or feedback is one thing versus outing people for disagreeing with you and having your followers like viciously try and tear those people down is another thing. And so I'm really torn how I feel about this, because I have my own issues with Barstool separately from this incident. And so I'm not 100% sure what I feel immediately, what I felt immediately, but it was conflicting for sure.
Yeah. How about you, Braden? What was your first thoughts?
Does this I mean, it's been great watching this women's hockey, like that hasn't happened, and I'm curious, like what are some of their other sponsors? Like how did they get involved in the first place?
Yeah, I don't think Barstool is a sponsor so much as I think that they were using some of their shows as a platform to try to promote the league, and that in and of itself is a good thing. I think where the criticism came, what the criticism came from, and there were some pretty specific, very vocal critics, the people who have, perhaps in the past also been critical of Barstool. Again, I know we did a big long intro there, but just in case I didn't do a clear enough job, Barstool Sports is a blog-based website. It's a sports and sort of pop culture tabloid style website, like a lot of websites that are out there, but their branding, their target branding is sort of the mass hole style, bro culture, college culture.
Bro culture.
Their shows are, they've got some of the most popular hockey podcasts out there. Spitting Chicklets is one of theirs. But they also have other sort of, I mean, their slogan when they first launched was sports and smut, right? Yes. They've got the Call Me Daddy podcast, which
Saturdays are for the boys.
Yeah. So it's a very bro-y culture anyway. That's the branding. Anyway, so that I just want to put that out there for those who aren't sort of aware of what Barstool brand is. But like I was saying, they were promoting it independently. I don't believe they're a sponsor. They have no relationship directly to the league, but it was people connected to the league, players and media, people who follow them, who felt like they were not comfortable with Barstool promoting them. They did not want to be associated with Barstool, even through just the fact that Barstool was a media outlet covering the league. Yeah. They felt like to be associated, even by proxy, with that organization was to somehow endorse the things that Barstool stands for, which are antithetical to many of the things that this league stands for. 100%. This league slogan is hockey's for everyone. And the idea that you're a league built on inclusivity and trying to develop, anti-racist messages, like anti-sexist messages, obviously by the very definition of being the only professional women's hockey league you are in, you know what I mean? So I think that's where the real crux of it started. Yeah. And what's difficult is that there is a nuanced conversation to be had about, like Larisse said, when you are a fledgling organization in need of support, there was a time when we would say, and maybe this would have been the way this was dealt with, where they would have said, don't look a gift horse in the mouth. But the truth is, are we not in a new age where we should be more aware of who is doing the promoting?
Or trying to align the promoting with your values as an organization. And they are antithetical to each other.
Absolutely.
The values. And so it's understandable that there would have been critics then of this promotion because they aren't aligned in their core values.
Yeah, and again, I think there's two parts to this. One is the first part of this, which is that Barstool has every right in under the freedom of expression to promote and talk about anything they want on their platform, just as you and I and our guests can talk about anything we want to, within reason. We can't have hate speech and all those things. Yes. That's where the line comes, and that's certainly where the pushback to Barstool is. But they are allowed to talk about any hockey league they want to talk about. They're allowed to have any guests, and those guests make the choice. However, I think the where this story snowballed, and what I was really intrigued by about it and wanted to have this conversation about, was how we felt about the second part, which is, how can an organization that is, expressing opinions, sort of get away with defending other people's criticism of them by such aggressive and violent means? I mean, not necessarily physical, but there were death threats. There were people suggesting that, some of these critics should be killed. Some of these critics should commit suicide for, like, just horrible things. One specifically, Soraya Tinker, who's a rookie for the Riveters. This is a team out of New Jersey, so one of the teams in the league. She's actually one of the lone black players in the league. She tweeted Monday that the league should not accept support from that platform, and that they should actually make it a policy that the players aren't, that the players shouldn't be interviewed on it, because she believed that the platform promotes white supremacy. Now, David Portnow responded to Tinker's comments by suggesting she should be in jail for suggesting that, prompting his fans and the Stoolies to harass the 22-year-old, and continuing to have this sort of online warfare occur. They're like I said, they just continually pushing it. And I think that the really unfortunate thing is their only defense is, oh, we were just trying to promote the league. Well, how on earth are you promoting a league, or can you defend promoting a league that you are now literally tearing apart?
Yeah, and Soraya Tinker's absolutely right. Like they should not put up with that kind of support, and they shouldn't be subject to that kind of pressure from anybody who doesn't align with what they're trying to do as a whole league. That is, like, you see it easily done in other leagues where they won't subject to that. They won't.
Yeah. So let me turn the tables, Joe, for 1 second, and here's my question. We've seen the support from the Canadian hockey media. We've seen some level of support from the NHL. Now, the NHL does not have the same relationship with this league that, say, the NBA and the WNBA do, which is a much more hand-in-hand relationship, right? They are working a lot closer together to promote. And we've seen some of the most powerful protests last summer after George Floyd's murder from WNBA players. We saw the pushback and sort of the catalyst of a lot of what happened politically in Georgia after the
100%.
The Atlanta basketball team. I apologize, I may not remember the team's name correctly, but the team owned by then Congress Senator Kelly Loeffler, who was the team owner. They pushed back against her, suggesting that they were embarrassed and ashamed to play for a team owned by her. We saw a lot of that. The NBA, the WNBA, and the NBA have worked a lot better to protect them. My question is, does the NHL need to step in here to try to do a better job to protect this league because of how its relationship is? But the truth is, the NHL, I think, has a very checkered and difficult relationship with the Barstools of the world anyway. You've got former players who host podcasts. The Spitting Chiclet podcast obviously often has guests on there. My big thing, I think, that's hard is that I think a lot of hockey fans, a lot of sports fans have a difficult time sometimes separating sports from the bigger outside politics. And this is another great example of that. Yeah. They're willing to sort of turn a blind eye to the other parts of Barstool because they like one part of it or something like that. And this is one of those reminders that we can't be doing that. We have to be double checking and looking at the big picture here, because if we don't, and we simply allow it to go unchecked, people get hurt.
I think one thing that sometimes sports fans forget in the heat of what they love is that there's always going to be more media to consume later. And so, yes, they might be attached right now to Splitting Chiclets or something at Barstool, and for whatever reason, and like you said, maybe they have the ability to put blinders on to the other things that are taking place. But reading the comments sections in some of Barstool's articles or posts, it can get really ugly and full of vitriol, often very misogynistic. And I think that, like, if we start to think that there could be other forms of entertainment in terms of, like, our content of sports media, and that it doesn't just have to be that, we don't have to just go to that one source, that I think then we will be able to start seeing the bigger picture a little bit too.
And also, I think here's the thing that...
Well, yeah, there's many sources.
I think the thing that's missing here is that the idea... I think that there's a very similar mentality. This is why I brought it up in the intro. There's a very similar mentality in the Barstool culture, which is, defend, never retreat, always attack, always defend, always attack, which is like Trump, which is like MAGA, which is like I said, all of that sort of neoconservatism where we are the victims because people are out to get us. We're just a little, business trying to make a living. Well, here's the truth. You're bigger than that. You're one of the most popular sports entities out there. You have some of the most listened to and consumed content in podcasts. You have some of the most consumed content in the sports sphere online. Do you not have a duty to listen to the bigger picture and to make sure that you are clear in what your brand is? Because here's the truth. You are either racist or you are pretending to be so, or you are willing to be so covertly. And you have to be you can't be both. You have to be one or the other. If you are going to just do sports and not politics, or you are just going to be the thing you claim to be, then you have to be transparent about it. If we allow them to covertly be racist and covertly be misogynistic and covertly be sexist and homophobic and whatever else, eventually it's no longer covert. It becomes explicit, and we're comfortable with it. We've desensitized ourselves to it. And that, I think, is the danger we face. People who just listen to one podcast and are not aware of the rest of that biosphere, they may be completely taken off guard when they hear this story, because they're like, well, the content I consume doesn't feel that way. But all of those people associated with that brand are endorsing it by not asking to check it. So when these people come out and criticize it, that brand needs to find a better way to look inward and say, okay, is this who we are? And if so, then we defend ourselves. And that's what it seems to be they're doing, right? But right now they're playing the victim of, we were just trying to promote the thing. It's like, okay, but maybe these, if you're actually promoting this league, listen to what the league's issues are and decide whether you promote the league as it is or how you want it to be. Your interest.
Absolutely. And I think in this case, it's very clear it just served their interest to promote it, because as soon as there was any pushback, they immediately then went and attacked people in that league. So at that point, you don't actually care about those members of that league or that league in general. You only care about the clicks you were to receive from that interview, because as soon as anybody said anything negative or even constructive and gave criticism, you immediately then went and attacked, in this case, a player in that league, saying they should be in jail. Yeah. Clearly, then your interests are self-serving, and it's very clear you're self-serving in that exact moment.
And you said the word. Well, you said the word duty, and I think that was something that I think is really important here, is that even if that platform or other platforms aren't going to step up and help, there needs to be more allyship from other players, other leagues, other parties that recognize that this isn't appropriate and this isn't something that they should have to stand for.
Yeah. And as I said earlier, I mean, we're going to wait and see, I guess, how this unfolds. I hope that there are conversations like this going on at the NHL level. I worry there aren't, because we already know the NHL has its own problems with diversity. That's why we're seeing what we saw last summer with diversity and with these issues. They too love to just sort of play the we didn't know, or we're not directly associated with, or whatever. But I hope that players, especially, players like Darnell Nurse, who have sisters who play the sport, people who have family members who are involved in women's hockey, but just women's sports in general, continue to have these conversations to recognize that if we intend to move forward as a society, opening ourselves up to more opportunities for inclusion in both men's and women's and transgender or whatever levels of sport, whether it's minor sports or professional sports, if we want to make these things inclusive, both for their competitors and for their fan bases, we need to constantly be checking in on these kinds of issues that surround the sports, as well as those that directly affect it. That's my last word on it. All right. Here's our last topic. We'll finish out with this one. We had a segment we used to finish every show with. We kind of dropped it, but we're going to bring it back occasionally. It's called Hats Off. This week, though, we've got a special edition of it. We're calling it the 3 stars of the week, Hats Off. So each one of us is going to pick our star of the week and give a little tip of the cap to them. Why don't we start with Braden? Braden, who is your star this week?
Okay, big news came out of a city just south of me today. I'm really happy about, only for the sake of the well-being of this star of the week, I'm giving my star to Sam Bennett, who has requested a trade from the Calgary Flames. And I think what he's recognizing is that he can thrive in a place where he doesn't have to look at, be in the same room as Matthew Tkachuk.
All right.
I mean, it would make
Braden's
me want to go somewhere else
Sam
too.
Bennett for wanting out of Calgary. Larisse, who is your star of the week?
My star, I have been notoriously hard on in the past, but 26 saves tonight. He played well. I've got to give it to Koskinen. I am not always team Koskinen, and I sometimes worry when he's in net that something's going to go horribly wrong. But I think he's been playing well. He's been trying to keep us in it, and I think tonight was a great game for him.
Flash the leather against Marner there to keep the game tied.
Yep.
I want to just quickly mention one thing. I don't know if Braden or you were aware of this, but as of tonight's game, he has now played more games than any other goalie currently in the NHL because he's played every game.
Well, so I'm
And
tipping my hat to him.
He probably will just continue to add to that lead. He's going to have to be a workhorse here for the Oilers. I don't even know if he's going to play tomorrow, but we'll find out. My hat goes off.
He looks like he needs help.
He does.
He needs a nap.
But
he needs a nap.
He's holding his own.
He needs help.
He is holding his own.
Yes, and that's why I'm taking my hat off to him tonight.
All right, I'm going to tip my hat to Tyler Toffoli of the Montreal Canadiens, not just because one of our only listeners is our grandfather, Bob Coltman, who has been a Montreal Canadiens fan for basically, actually as long as all three of us have been alive, but pretty much since, television was in color, and even before television even broadcast hockey. He may have been at the first hockey game ever played, Bob Coltman. He's that old.
He might have invented hockey.
He might have. Regardless, Tyler Toffoli leaving the Canucks in the off season to go to Montreal. He'd played most of his hockey in LA. Canuck fans sad to see him go, but they were much sadder to see him come back as he scored 5 goals in 2 games against his former team. And nothing brings me more joy than watching Canuck fans feel like they have once again somehow screwed up the offseason. There were calls for Benning's head. It's unreal how quickly Canuck fans jump off the bandwagon. I will leave it at that. Tyler Toffoli, you get my tip of the cap. Thanks for...
It was hard to see him leave my fantasy team too this week. Picked him up early. I thought he was going to do well. He had some pretty weak shifts on the third line. I dropped him. My buddy Ben Stevens picked him up, and hat trick 2 goals later. Yeah, good for Tyler Toffoli.
Perhaps then a little additional tip of the cap to Ben Stevens for knowing the difference between good and poor choices in fantasy. Thank you, Larisse, for joining us this week. We really appreciated your insight. We'll have you back the next time the Oilers have a big night that we need to just revel in our own fandom.
Let's hope that's sooner rather than later.
Fair enough. Brady, thanks for another great episode. We know we broke the rules this week, didn't stick to the timer in topic 2. We'll be back with our rigidly timed segments for you next week. Thank you for listening. And as always, this is Hat Trick. Hat Trick is a member of the Ordinary Podcasting Network. It's produced every week by Jordan Dyler Coltman and Braden Dyler Coltman. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Thanks for listening. Hey, that went pretty well.
Can you ask me my person again?